I saw a stat that says if you own 3 rentals, you are in the top 5% of all real estate investors. Top 5% owning 3 rentals. That's it.
Hello, welcome to episode 165 of the Smart Agents Podcast. As always, my name is Michael Walter, and I'll be your host. In today's episode, we are joined by real estate investor Michael Mannino. Starting at the age of 19, Michael bought his first foreclosure and has since bought and sold more than 80 properties before the age of 30. Throughout our conversation, Michael shares what he looks for in a property when deciding to invest in it, why he has expanded into multifamily property investment, and how sharing the renovation process on social media is bringing him more business. But before we get on to today's featured interview, the all-new Smart Agents magazine has launched and is full of insights and strategies designed to help real estate agents grow their businesses. Inside, you will find interviews and advice from leading real estate professionals, marketing tips to flood your business with leads, and even swipe and deploy files full of practical tools to enhance your business. Subscribe now to receive your copy of the printed magazine each month and instantly get access to our online agent community and members-only templates. Click the link in the episode description or go to smartagents.com/magazine. Also, if you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to like and subscribe to Smart Agents Podcast. We stream on all major podcasting platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, and of course, YouTube. And finally, if you or someone else on your team has an incredible story or tips to share with our community, send us a message at feedback@smartagents.com. We're always on the lookout for new stories to share. All right, let's get on to today's featured interview with Michael Mannino. He recently began teaching others how to profit off of real estate investments, and you can learn more at 55kdeal.com. Really, the way I like to start everything out is if you could just introduce yourself to us a little bit. Tell us, where you're at.
Sure. Yeah, so my name is Mike Mannino, and currently I'm in South Carolina, and my fix and flip business is up in Michigan. I have bought, fix and flipped over 80 homes by the age of 30. Right now we own over 19 apartment rentals. So they're paying us every single month. We got, 60 of those. And I've also wholesaled apartments and self-storage facilities. And now I have a mentorship group for people who want to learn how to get in real estate, buy, fix and flip houses and things like that.
Right. What was it that originally got you interested in, flipping homes and just real estate in general?
Very good question. So I'm going to take a step back a little bit because I think mindset is extremely important. So at 13 years old, I had a life-altering diagnosis. I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, which is, basically an ulcer in your stomach where it really hurt to eat. And I was on 16 different medications a day from 13 to 16 years old. I was on steroids for it. And that experience, I thank God for it because it really taught me the importance of life and how very fragile it is. Because when you're in middle school and high school, you're young. I mean, you could break a leg and then be running next week. You're just like Wolverine at that point. And so that helped me realize how precious life is and to not take it for granted because tomorrow's not always promised. And that's when I got introduced to Jack Canfield, who is the author of Chicken Soup for the Soul. I love Jack Canfield and his work. And there's a movie called The Secret. There's a book and a movie. And something I took from that, there's a lady who was diagnosed with breast cancer. And through the power of positive affirmations, eating right, exercising, and believing that she was already healthy, within, I think, 9 months, she went from having breast cancer to no breast cancer with no medications. And I really took that to heart. So I watched that movie 18 times in 3 years, just really installed that in my life. So, and I was blessed at 16 years old. I got off all the medications, a lifelong disease. I've been in remission. I've never seen a doctor since then. It's been 14 years. So I give it all the glory to God. So that's what really got me into okay, you can't be in the middle of life. You have to really act and be intentional, if that makes sense. So how I got into real estate was 16 years old. I'm working at McDonald's. I had humble beginnings. My parents didn't, give me anything. We're just middle class. So working at McDonald's, bussing tables and to waiting tables. And at 19 years old, I saved up $14,500. And this was back in 2012. So I got a 3.5% FHA loan. And I was able to only put $7,000 down. And I bought a house at 19 years old. I'm just a waiter going to community college. And I bought a foreclosed house. It's a 3-bed, 2-bath house, 1,000 square feet. I paid $67,000 for it. I'll never forget the day I closed on it. My dad wanted to go out to dinner. He's like, "Hey, let's go celebrate. It's so amazing, this accomplishment." I was like, "I can't. I got a renter moving in next week. I have to go to the house and get it prepped because it's foreclosed." I told him that the room will be ready and I have to go make it ready. So I'm there like washing blood off of the walls and the baseboards with the biggest smile on my face because it's such a big accomplishment, right? So I did what was called house hacking, and I didn't know what it was called at the time because it was back before podcasts, before I listened to them. And it was really cool. So the mortgage was $600 a month, and I rented the other 2 bedrooms out to people I waited tables with. So they're paying $300 a month each. So if you do the math, like I'm 19 years old, I'm going to community college and waiting tables, and they're paying my mortgage for me. Like, how cool. I have a free house now, a free place to live instead of going out and paying rent. So that's how I got started. I fixed up the house, and I think 2 years later, or maybe 2.5 years later, I sold the house for $147,000. So I had a $60,000 check in my hand at 21. I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Moved back home with mom and dad, and that's where I started buying, fixing, and flipping houses from there.
Right. So once you, I mean, really just, I mean, at 19 years old to save the money up to be able to, make that purchase, but then to really think about the, investment of it and renting it out to where your mortgage was being paid for. Where did that, come from to where you knew like, okay, this is the path that is going to help me, not only in this initial, living situation, but then going forward?
Yeah, really good question. So I always think long term. There's something called the marshmallow test. I don't know if you've heard of it, but they tell the kids, "Hey, you can get a marshmallow now or 2 marshmallows in like 5 minutes if you wait." And you'd be surprised how many kids are just like, "Give me the marshmallow now." And back then I'm driving a 2004 Malibu. It's called a classic. It was only made in 2 years. It's such a bad car. No horn, no AC. And I could have bought a car. I wanted the 2010 yellow black stripe Bumblebee Camaro from Transformers. Like, that was my dream car at the time. And I just knew, like, just like basic math, like, I don't know really, my parents, I think, installed, financial literacy, with what they had. Right. So growing up, I watched like Dave Ramsey and things like that, pay off your debts. But I knew, like, long term, like, how much is this car going to be worth in like 5 years? Like, if I pay 30 grand for it, it's going to be worth like 10 grand in like 5 years, right? Versus the house, what it could be worth. And I had no idea it was going to be worth, double what I paid for it. But I knew, like, long term, that will probably be a better investment. And I also know, like, I'm young, 19, 20 years old, going to college, working 2 jobs. I can't do this at 40 and 50 years old. I can do this at 20 years old. But at 40 and 50, I know I'm going to slow down. And I saw that my father, where he's in construction and he started to slow down at that age. So I knew, like, okay, you don't really have till 65. Like, bust out work in your 20s and 30s while you have the energy so you can relax, when you're older.
Right. So once you got that $60,000 check, what was, what were kind of the next steps in wanting to, really kind of scale this up and expand the fixing and flipping? And what were you doing there?
So, good question. I had the money for less than 30 days in my bank account, and I didn't blow it on anything dumb. Thankfully, I bought a foreclosed house again. And so I moved back home with mom and dad. We went to the Michigan tax auction. That's where my business is out of. That's where I'm from, is Michigan. So Michigan is different than a lot of states, where it's really sad. April 1st, if you have not paid your property taxes over the last 3 years, you lose your house. There's no redemption periods. That's it. And then they have the foreclosure auction in the summer. I think it's July or August. So I go there and I'm like telling myself, there's a couple houses I was looking at. I had the list, but you can't house because they're occupied. You can only see the outside of the house. And there's a couple. I'm like, all right, if this one sells for like under 60,000, maybe I'll buy it. That's all the money I have. So I'm like, all right. And I go to the auction. It goes to 50,000, and I ended up winning bitter and I'm like scared out of my mind. I'm like, I just made the worst financial decision of my life. I just bought a house. I can't see the inside of it. I don't know what it looks like. And knowing what I know now, is built in 1840 and I could plumbing and foundation and, all the things that could have been wrong with it. And I was blessed it wasn't too bad. But we bought it and I had $10,000 left to my name. So I'm like, hey, Dad, I already bought the house and we looked through it and it's actually a good house. So how about I partner with you? If you invest for the renovations and help manage the contractors, then we split it 50-50. So it's an easy win for him and a good win for me. So we did that. A couple months later, we sold that for like 140,000. So like a good, like another solid, I think like $60,000 profit house after it was all said and done. And that was in 2015. And then 2016, we bought 2 houses. 2017, we bought 4 houses. 2018, we bought 9 houses. 2020, that's when we're humming in the 20 houses per year. And that's where we're at in our business. And we're not looking to expand it anymore. But that's kind of the progression of it: 2, 4, 9, 18, and 20 something houses now.
Right. So when you were looking for, these properties to bid on or, to purchase, what were some of the keys on that checklist that you are wanting to hit to make sure that you knew that it was a good investment?
Yeah. So back then I didn't know as much as I know now. I was just like, a house that I can afford for $50,000. That was really it. But I did know the area. So it was in an area that I grew up in. It was a good area, like schools. This isn't, so like what I look for now, there's like 4 types of neighborhoods, like the A class, like those places where in your neighborhood, they're tearing down the 1,000 square foot houses and building a 2,800 square foot mansion and it's going for $1 million. That's the A class. Like those I can't compete with because I'm a fix and flipper and these people are developers are coming in. Then there's the B and C. These are the everyday, workers in America, especially in Metro Detroit where I was at. There's like the GM, Ford, and Chrysler. These are the workers. They go in, they go to the plant, they come back, like the blue collar workers. These are the best neighborhoods to invest in because you'll drive and you'll see like 4 or 5 nice houses and then one that looks like grandma's house. 4 or 5 nice houses and then one that looks like grandma's house. Like those are the best neighborhoods because you can fix up a property, but you can't fix up the neighborhood. And if you're buying, which would be the D class, where you'd be scared to walk around at night, those are the ones I want to stay away from because, especially like in the city of Detroit, because you're dealing with people breaking in and stealing HVACs all the time and the copper plumbing and all that so I look for the B's and C neighborhoods, and so that's like the area that I look for.
Right. When it comes to the actual, flipping of the house and, the fixing up of it, what are some of those things that, you kind of prioritize most to get the most return on your investment?
Good question. So kitchens and bathrooms are number one for the house because everything else is just 4 walls, a living room, a bedroom. It's just literally just like 4 walls. And the type of houses we look for are the first time home buyer homes. I look for these starter homes because these are the homes that you have like 4 or 5 different types of buyers looking for the same exact house versus a luxury home. I get asked all the time, Mike, how come you don't do the luxury homes? Because you have one buyer, and right now at 7-8% interest, you have way less than that one buyer, right? So we're looking for the first time home buyer homes under 2,000 square foot, preferably like a 3-1 at least, or a 3-2 would be ideal. Like that's the type of house we're looking for, is like, so in those neighborhoods, like these are the houses where it's kind of funny. Like my sister pays rent like $2,200 a month for a 2-bed, 2-bath. And it's a nice, like newer apartment versus one of my flips. It's brand new kitchen, floors, doors, trim, cabinetry, $1,800 a month. I'm like, you get your own house and save $400 a month. Like there's no beating these houses because you got first time home buyers. You got people who their kids left the house and they're moving from that $1 million house to these $250,000 houses now. They're downsizing. You got landlords, out-of-state landlords love these houses because it's just turnkey. They buy the house and literally list it on Zillow that day. You have people who one of my friends bought it for one of his parents to live in the house, a ranch, right? So that's why I love these houses because it's like in the replacement costs. Like when we're done with them, we're selling them for $250. it would cost 350 to build these houses. You can't even build them for what we're selling them for. That's why I just love these types of houses.
Right, absolutely. So, you're obviously we're doing, this and you're really kind of humming along when the whole world kind of changed, COVID hit, and
Yeah.
housing market like really kind of changed. How did that change your business?
Very good question. So I had 8 houses during COVID, and
Mhm.
and in March 2020 in Michigan, our governor made it illegal to look at real estate for 45 days. So I hold
Yeah.
a grudge. We lost $18,000 in mortgages
Right.
and non-homestead property taxes. So we couldn't have our contractors and whatnot work on it. So but I would have lost that bet if you would have told me that real estate was going to go wild. I would have bet against
Mhm.
that, but it did. Um, so how we buy, we typically buy at the 70% of after repaired value. So basic numbers, if a house is worth 100,000, we want to be into it for 70,000 so that we have room for holding costs, closing costs, and our profit. So we're typically buying, on that example, we'd put 30,000 into it. So we have to buy this house for 40,000. So 40 for the purchase, 30 for the reno. We're into it for 70, 30,000 left over for holding costs, closing costs, and profit. So we'll probably make 15,000 on that house. Um, so that's how, we're buying up to that point. COVID hit, things are going crazy. We went up to, in the nice neighborhoods, 80% of after repaired value. Because like we're gonna buy it 4 months later, we could list it for more than what we paid for it. Like it's gonna be worth more than we paid for, like than what we're projecting. And now we're back up to that 70% of things are more normal now. People aren't giving away their firstborn child for the house. And so things are just like more normal.
Right. So now, kind of moving forward, you have gotten into the multifamily investing and, kind of gone, taking things that direction as well. Tell me, what was it that made you want to go move that way?
Yeah, it's a very good question. So fixing and flipping is a great business. It's a very high paying business. I'm blessed. I don't have a real job. This is what I do full time. I am
Mhm.
a full time real estate investor. So I learned though, while doing that is you always have a money problem. You either A, don't have enough, or B, you have too much and Uncle Sam wants a piece of it. And this is like I had this cash machine just humming, which is great. And I literally only spend 5 hours a week on this business. It's up in Michigan, 750 miles away. And I needed to build something where A, I could get depreciation to help offset my taxes in my fix and flip business, and then also provide passive income because retirement, I don't have a 401k. I don't believe Social Security will be around by the time I'm 65. So I have to do my own retirement. And then also wealth appreciation. This is awesome because it's going up in value while you're literally like sleeping because you get the rent bumps that go up like every year. Every renter is okay with a $25 a year rent bump. And if you understand how multifamily works, when you have 100 units, that's a lot of money. That adds hundreds of thousands of dollars per year, just like on auto, just to the value of the property. So back in 2022, April, I brought on a partner who runs my boots on the ground for the single family business. So he's doing the day to day and allows me to take a step back and then focus on the multifamily and self storage because it's the same thing. It's like the cool thing is you learn these skills of renovating properties and pulling comparables and like all the same things, but there's just more zeros at the end. And if you keep these, then you get paid forever versus like a flip, you get paid once. You can make 35,000 or 100,000 a flip, which is great, but that's one time. Whereas I'm looking for something that's going to pay me when I'm 60.
Yeah. So, in with the multifamily, what were you looking for to get into that space? Is it particular areas that you're looking to get into that are kind of high traffic, have the ability to have uh, you know full occupation? What were you looking for?
Good question. So again, very similar to my fix and flip business, like looking for the BC neighborhoods, like the
Mhm.
A's are too expensive. The D's, I had a D and I would have to carry every time I went there and it's not worth it. Trust me. So I looked for the BC areas and I first started in Michigan. That's where I'm from. So just my own backyard. We have a renovation crews. We were doing buildings. And what I'm looking for is probably a lot more conservative than most multifamily investors. I'm looking to do the BRRRR strategy, right? Where I buy it, I renovate it, I refinance, I get my money back, and I repeat. And that's what we're looking for. So we're looking to be into a building for 75%, for the purchase plus the renovations, capture my money back, and then just hold this thing forever. Because if I can own a building with no money into it and it's brand new, I'm set. Like, right, that like one of these properties will change your life. So we have like, I don't even know, I think 30 something units up in Michigan, and then now we've been focusing more in the Carolinas, where I'm like living in South Carolina now. This is one of the reasons. So an interesting stat is in 2022, Michigan had a net decline of 10,000 people who left the state, where North Carolina had a positive 100,000 people. South Carolina had 80,000, I believe, same with Georgia. Florida had 300,000, right?
Right.
So you just kind of zoom out. It's crazy. He's laughing. He's in Florida and he sees it on the highway. And if you just zoom out, that's what I love about this business. If you just zoom out, it's just like basic supply and demand and math. Like, okay, if this trend continues, which I believe it will, 10 years from now, what are rents? If it was the same property in Michigan versus the same property in North Carolina, in 10 years from now, what are the rents going to look like? Like if I'm putting my retirement on the line, like I have to be strategic about this. And I believe that like the Sun Belt states where people are moving to, that is going to be a better bet versus the Midwest.
Right. So when you are, yeah, obviously like looking at your social media pages and your Instagram and all those kind of things, you're very, the videos that you're producing and all those kind of things, you're really taking people inside, the properties that you're working on, the renovations that you're doing. What was it that made you want to do that? And what are you really kind of doing with those videos?
Very good question. So, Michael, this changed my business, was documenting the journey. Years ago, I heard Gary Vaynerchuk said, don't create, just document. And I was probably one of the first real estate investors, and I just primarily focused on Facebook to do this. And I would just kind of do it like a HGTV, just like here, like everyone loves watching that. So I'm like, hey, my name's Mike Mannino, and here's this house we just bought. It looks gross, right? And we're gonna rip out the cabinets. We're gonna do new floors and doors and trim. And you got to see the first videos. I said, and I was so nervous all the time, but like now I'm way better at it. And doing that though, there's two things that happened. One, I got private investors who want to invest with me because they would see over and over and over again, just like the consistency of posting and just documenting what we're doing. I have a line of people who want to invest in my single family flips. Our single family business is pretty much full because we only need in Michigan like about $1.5 million, and you own 10 houses like at a time. That's all we really need. So now we got people, I'm like, I need to move them to the multifamily where there's like, bigger zeros. And it's a great way by sharing your story is to raise capital. I actually just finished a call a few weeks ago with a gentleman who's I didn't know we were friends. He hasn't changed his Facebook profile since 2017, hasn't made a post. I didn't know he existed up to this point. And he says, Mike, I've been following you for 4 years. He's never liked any of my posts, right? I've been following you for 4 years. I love what you're doing. I have hundreds of thousands of dollars I want to allocate, and I want you to help me, in your multifamily journey. Just like, right? Someone who's been following me for 4 years, I had no idea. And now I'm able to help them because they're like, I got all this cash sitting in the bank account. I get $4 a quarter. I'm like, oh, we'll get you way higher returns than that. So that was number one. And then also doing that is for my private lenders, they're seeing the process of like their money at work. They love seeing the like, oh, hey, Mike just bought this property 3 weeks ago. Now the cabinets are out and it's coming along. So instead of them just sitting at home, like, I hope Mike is doing what he says, they actually get to see it. And then another one is getting deals. So one of the houses I filmed, I posted it, and this is what I love about it. It's free, 100% free. I got my cell phone. I'm like, hey, it's Mike Mannino. We're going to clear this out. We're going to do this. We post that on social media. A lady messages me and says, hey, Mike, my mom lives across the street, literally across the street from this house. It's a hoarder house. She wants to sell her house. She's embarrassed, doesn't want real estate agents to come through. Would you be interested in buying it? I'm like, yes. And we bought that house and we made $35,000 from that house because of a free video, free advertising. Right.
Yeah. So, I mean,
Uh,
I think that's like the really cool thing about that type of that marketing. Really, I mean, the return on investment, your investment is your time and effort, and that's it. You're not, making all these big presentations or anything like that. It's simply just connecting with people.
yeah. And, it's really cool. And then, I mean, now it's like we bought houses, multifamily. I helped one of my buddies. He made, if I don't know if your audience knows what wholesaling is, but it's basically tying up a property and then you find another buyer. And because I've shared my experience, on another, we wholesaled a 28 unit, made $175,000. It was great. I shared the whole experience into some private Facebook groups. He saw that and he said, "Hey, Mike, I have this self-storage facility up in the Boston market. I might be interested in wholesaling this one." Long story short, he made $250,000, $224,000 assigning this self-storage facility because he almost walked away from the deal. So if I didn't share the deal, he would have walked away from it because it was his first deal. He was scared, and he was an engineer at a tech company. And he's like, "I don't know what I'm doing. This thing needs a ton of renovations." So it was really cool. Like sharing the journey actually helps a lot of other people along the way, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things I saw that, in some of your other interviews that you've done is talking about the fact that anytime you got into something, you sought out other coaches and
Yep.
things to kind of help, kickstart, where, whatever that career path was or whatever business plan was. What was it that made you want to seek out coaches?
Good question. So I started back, like I said, I was flipping houses, and it was back when we had four houses. And I was listening to a podcast. His name was Justin Williams, was my first mentor. I'm mowing the lawn and at one of my flips, and I'm going to Home Depot 3 times a day. And this guy's like, "Yeah, I flip 100 houses. I don't see them. And I chase my wife around the house all day." I never forget those words. I'm like, this guy's a liar. That's impossible. Because I have one flip. I live at Home Depot. I'm living at this house, basically. I feel like I'm mowing the lawn. I'm doing everything myself. I said, okay, this isn't scalable. Like, if I want financial freedom, and I want to own a business, I can't be like working in the business. I knew like this wasn't scalable. Like guessing wasn't scalable. Like not always having the money lined up for the deal, not always having a deal lined up for my contractors. Like to be in the middle, like that's very hard. So I was like, I need to go all in. And if this guy, you know, is truthful, then I have to be a little bit more successful. Like I paid, I think 30,000 for my first mentor. I was like, you know what, if I just, most people are like, "Oh my gosh, it's so expensive." But I'm like, if I can do one more house a year where I make 30,000, well, then the lifetime value of that is hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? So that's the way I thought. But we went from 4 houses to 9 houses, then the 18, all because of that, like learning how to run it like a business, not just like a hobby. And then I decided from then on, because my life transformed, my employees' lives transformed. My father, I retired my father back in 2019 from this flipping company. Very blessed to have that. And I, like from what I know now is like it's so much easier and better and fast to learn from someone else's mistakes and successes. I mean, to collapse that time, right? I mean, it would take me maybe 10 years to learn everything I've learned in just like a year or two period. So same thing with multifamily. Anything I do, then I started this coaching company. I hired someone. Like anything I do, I always hire someone who is where I want to be, right? Because if like Justin Williams flipping 100 houses, that's where I want to be. So I hired him. You said you had Rod on the podcast. I hired him. He's one of the best multifamily coaches, right? So I just look for people who are at where I want to be and just collapse that. Like I said in the beginning, like I realize that time is very finite. And I don't want to be in the middle. Like I commit to any actions I take.
Right. So tell me a little bit about, before we wrap up, tell me what, about your coaching program and
Mhm.
what you're doing with that.
Yeah. So I have some free resources for your listeners. So there's a website if you guys want to see how I buy, fix, and flip deals, and I have the standardized pricing sheet that allows me to understand the renovation costs before I even purchase the house, and I show you like walk you step by step on how I make $55,000 on a house. So if you guys want to go to 55kdeal.com, so it's 55K, like that's how much you made, 55,000
Mhm.
deal.com, 55kdeal.com. It's a free resource. And if you are interested in learning more about what we're doing inside of there, helping people like Ryan Scully in our group joined 6 months ago, and he went from 0 houses to 6 flips in 6 months. There's people in our group who are also doing like multifamily, and like Brandon Hicks, that's the guy who did the $250,000 self-storage facility deal. If you want to learn more about that stuff, we have free resources and, help people get to where they want to be. Because, I was first in the beginning, like, hey, like, I don't know what I'm doing. I seeked out a mentor. Now I'm blessed to have more time to help others. And the cool thing is it's like a rising, what's that saying? Like a rising lifts all ship. What was that? Rising ocean lifts all ship, whatever it is. But the cool thing is like we do deals with our students, like, single family and multi, and like we give deals away and helping like how to raise capital and like all that education. So like we all get better every single day. So very blessed and fortunate to have that.
Yeah, no, I think it's awesome. And I think it's one of those things like, you think about the amount of people, like all the millennials and especially, the Gen Z people that are just now getting into that first time home buying process. Well, those wheels are starting to spin on, okay, how can I maybe turn this into something bigger, and how can I invest in my future? And it is a scary, thought to kind of start, like, just how do you even get started? Like, that's like such a big blocker. And to have somebody like yourself that's done it, been through it, and then now sharing that, I think it's pretty awesome.
Like you said, just to get started is so big. You have no idea. I thought, like, I joked around. I was like, if you do one deal, you're in the top 99% of real estate investors. Like, that was just like my saying. But then I saw a stat that says if you own 3 rentals, you are in the top 5% of all real estate investors. Top 5% owning 3 rentals. That's it. So literally, that's how. If you can get past, like, doing your first deal is your hardest. If you can do the first deal, is harder than the next 10, and the next 10 is harder than the next 100. Like, I've done, I think, 80 something houses at this point, and we don't even see them in person. But my first one, when I had that tax auction, the one I won at the tax auction, I was so scared. Like, I thought I made the worst financial decision of my life. I couldn't see the inside. I literally, my ears were ringing, and I was just like, a bomb went off. I was like, oh my gosh, like, what did I just do? And that was the hardest one because I didn't know what I didn't know. But you take that first step, and then the second one, and the next one. And then by the time you get to the 10th, you're like, okay, you know what? We got some systems. We got some processes. Like, this is repeatable. Like, this is doable. And then after that, once you get to 10, you're off to the races. You can do as many as you want.
Awesome. Well, I really do appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today. And we will certainly be sharing your resources and pointing people in direction of your social media channels.
Awesome. Thank you, Michael. I appreciate it.
I want to thank Michael for joining us today, and I think it's awesome everything that he has overcome and achieved at such a young age. If you'd like to see more from Michael, I've linked his Instagram profile in the episode description. So once again, if you think you or someone else on your team has an incredible story or real estate tips to share with our community, send us a message at feedback@smartagents.com. Well, that wraps things up for this episode, but remember, follow the show wherever you listen to podcasts, and make sure to subscribe to the Smart Agents YouTube channel. Again, I'm Michael Walter, and we'll see you on the next episode.